So today, February 14th, and this today is our drive to Dunedin from Christchurch. And Christchurch was settled largely by the Church of England in English, and Dunedin was settled largely by Scottish settlers from the Church of Scotland, which was Anglican. And so the two towns have a different history.
Yeah. So Dunedin means Edinburgh in Gaelic. So this is the Scottish settlement.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got up. It was a long drive, so we got up early in the morning, and we were on the road by 8:15.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove for the better part of an hour and stopped in a small town in order to get a bathroom break.
Mm-hmm.
And then while we were doing that, we ended up picking up some chocolate and some coffee as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cute little town.
When I got a cheese and onion scone at the bakery.
Right.
It's good.
And then we drove on, and Phil, our guide, was talking about these statues, these memorials to their fallen and from the wars, and the camaraderie between New Zealanders, Kiwis, and Australians. So they kid each other a lot, but there's a strong bond between them. And
Mm-hmm.
part of that comes from the fact that during the First World War, the military combined the forces from New Zealand with those from Australia. And so it was called ANZAC, the Australia New Zealand Army Corps. And they trained their own soldiers, and largely, at least at the lower levels, were led by their own officers.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a strong sense of commonality. And they suffered tremendously in the First World War.
They had a population of around 900,000 people
In New
Zealand.
Right.
And 90,000, 10%, went to war.
Right.
Both men and women. So more men than women, but both men and women. And then you have
10% of their population.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So you have the numbers here that were wounded and killed of that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, 48,000 were wounded. That's 5% of their population.
Mm-hmm.
And 18,000 were killed. It's just, that's really remarkable. And then Phil sang for us Waltzing Matilda with all the verses. And it was really an anti-war song.
Mm-hmm.
About how they suffered and the loss of limbs and life. It was pretty remarkable.
And they referenced Gallipoli.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We're really lucky to have Phil as a guide.
He's great.
And eventually we ended up at a town called Oamaru.
Yeah.
Oamaru for lunch. And Oamaru is one of these towns that was settled in the mid-1800s and built up in the late 1800s with a lot of Victorian structures.
Yeah, limestone Victorian structures. Very lovely. It's used for movie sets frequently.
Mm-hmm. And we went to this pub to eat, and and we had chowder. And came out afterwards and went to a museum next to it.
And it has the honor of being
the home of steampunk.
Right.
Steampunk was invented in Oamaru, New Zealand. So they have this museum of steampunk with all of these kind of wonderful contraptions and rooms and machines and exhibits. And for an extra $5 a piece, we could have put on costumes, like with a diving helmet and different things like that. We didn't do it. But anyways, it was a remarkable museum.
It was fun. Mm-hmm.
And then we wandered around the Victorian district a little bit. Then went back and climbed in the bus and went over to the nearby beach, the shoreline, because there was a colony of brown fur seals.
And a little place where they help breed blue penguins.
Right.
Although right now, there weren't any blue penguins that you could see. They were sitting on nests, I think they said. But we did see one blue penguin out among the fur seals, which is unusual because they're usually nocturnal.
Right. So that was fun.
Yeah, and I think Jim got a picture of it.
I did. And then we drove to another beach nearby, and we saw the Moaraki boulders.
Right.
It turns out that, what you said,
60 million years ago.
60 million years ago, these sediments in the bottom of the sea with fish remains and stuff started to get compressed, and then there was this diffusion event and this and that. But they ended up forming these big, almost perfectly spherical boulders. And they were buried in the bottom of the sea. And then when New Zealand grew up from volcanic and tectonic activity, they were lifted up above the sea. And they were had been buried. And now the sea is coming and eroding away the banks, and these boulders become exposed and roll out onto the beach. And these things will be maybe 6 foot across.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're really huge.
I would say 8 foot.
Okay. 8 foot. Maybe, I'm sure you're right, dear. So we went and looked at these boulders, and then we drove on to Dunedin. We've got this fantastic hotel here.
Beautiful.
And we went out to the Etruscan restaurant and ate.
Italian food.
Italian food. It was like it had an antipasto, and then it had a pasta, and then it had 4 courses of pizza.
They made a mistake and brought us extra pizza.
Right. But we've also discovered between this restaurant and another one that we were at up in Rotorua, I think, that they make great Pinot Noirs in this part of New Zealand. So Central Otago makes great Pinot Noirs. Keep that in mind. That's it.
Okay.
We're done. Bye.